Okay, guys, you're not going to believe what happened to me yesterday. I picked up an elderly couple, about 75 years old each, and as they got into my car, the old lady said something that gave me goosebumps. You know, it was in a taxi just like this that I discovered the biggest secret of my life, a secret that almost destroyed my 50-year marriage. Man, I thought it would just be another normal ride, but what they told me changed the way I see love forever. Stick around, because this story is going to blow your mind. Hey, everyone, my name's Ricardo. I'm 35, and I've been a rideshare driver for almost 4 years here in Los Angeles. I've seen it all in this car, guys. I've picked up drunk people crying over an ex, bankrupt CEOs, famous people trying to hide, and moms rushing their sick kids to the hospital. But man, never have I been on a ride that affected me as much as the one I'm going to tell you about today. It was a rainy Wednesday, one of those days when LA traffic is a total nightmare. Gridlock, everyone's stressed out, that heavy mood you know so well. I was in the Hollywood Hills, already a bit impatient because it had been a crazy day, when I got a simple request. Pick up a couple from Cedars-Sinai Medical Center and take them to Koreatown. When I arrived at the hospital entrance, I saw 2 elderly people waiting under the awning. She, an elegant lady, neatly styled gray hair, wearing a navy blue coat and carrying a small leather purse. He, a gentleman with glasses, white hair, a crisply ironed dress shirt, and a kind smile. As soon as they saw me, they walked slowly to the car. "Good afternoon. Are you Ricardo?" the lady asked in a sweet voice. "One of those that reminds you of your grandmother baking on a Sunday." "That's me, ma'am. You're heading to Koreatown, right?" "That's right, son. Thank you so much for your kindness," replied, while her husband opened the back door for her to get in first. Such man, you don't see that every day. As they settled in the back seat, I adjusted the rearview mirror and asked if the AC temperature was okay. I always do that, especially with older people. "It's perfect, dear," she said. "You're very thoughtful. What was your name again?" "Ricardo, ma'am. And you, if you don't mind me asking?" "I'm Helena, and this is my husband Miguel. We've been married for 52 years, can you imagine?" Wow, 52 years. I, who can barely keep a relationship for 2 years, was impressed. I looked in the rear view mirror and saw them holding hands. It was the most beautiful thing. Seriously, 52 years. Congratulations. That's so rare these days. "It is, son," said Miguel, in a slightly hoarse but gentle voice. "It wasn't easy, but when you find the right person, it's worth fighting for." We started talking about everyday things. They had gone to the hospital for Helena's routine checkup. Nothing serious, thank God. Miguel said he was a retired railway engineer, had worked for 35 years as a locomotive driver. Helena had been an elementary school teacher for over 30 years. The traffic was still brutal, so we kept talking, in fits and starts. I always like to talk to older passengers because they have so many stories to tell, right? And man, these two seem to have a lot of stories. That's when Helena said something that caught my attention. "Ricardo, did you know that Miguel and I met in a taxi?" I thought that was interesting, and asked how it happened. Then Miguel looked a bit embarrassed and said, "Oh, Helena, the young man doesn't want to hear about those old..." But she continued, "Don't be silly, Miguel. It was a beautiful story." And she turned to me. "Can you believe we met exactly 50 years ago, on a stormy night just like this? I was 23 and I was..." Then Miguel interrupted her, sounding a bit nervous. "Helena, please, you don't need to tell him all." Man, I felt a strange tension in the... Helena was quiet for a few seconds, looking out the window, and I noticed in the rearview mirror that Miguel was squeezing her. It wasn't a loving squeeze, though. It was like when you're trying to warn someone to stop talking about something. "All right, Miguel," she said, but her voice had changed. It was a little sad, a little hurt. Man, what an awkward situation. I didn't know whether to keep asking or change the subject. I decided to try and break the ice. "Look, I know it's none of my business, but 50 years of marriage is an incredible achievement. You must have a lot of beautiful stories to tell." Helena smiled, but it was a bit forced. "Oh yes, son. Many stories. Some beautiful, others not so much." Then Miguel sighed deeply. "Helena, please." "Miguel, after 52 years of marriage, are you still afraid of the truth?" Wow, guy. The tension just got higher. I swear I even turned down the radio to try and understand what was going on back there. They were silent for about 3 minutes, which felt like an eternity. That's when she said something that made me shiver. "Ricardo, can I tell you something? Something I've never told anyone in 50 years?" My heart started racing. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw her eyes glistening, as if she were holding back tears. Miguel was looking at her with an expression I couldn't decipher. Was it fear? Was it sadness? Was it anger? "Of course, Helena, if you need to vent." She took a deep breath and said, "Did you know it was in a taxi just like this that I discovered the biggest secret of my life? A secret that almost destroyed my marriage? Man, I almost crashed the car. What is this about?" Miguel closed his eyes and shook his head, as if to say, "Here we go again." "Helena, for God's sake," he murmured. "No, Miguel, I'm tired of it. 50 years of keeping this. This young man seems like a good person, and who knows, by hearing our story, he might learn something about life." Guys, I had no idea what was going on. What was this secret? What was this story? My mind was racing. Did they have a fight? Was there infidelity? Was it... "What happened, Helena?" I asked, trying to sound casual, but inside I was incredibly curious. She looked at her husband, then at me in the rearview mirror. "Ricardo, do you believe in fate?" "I do, yeah." "Then you'll understand our story, because what happened to us wasn't a coincidence. It was fate giving us a second chance, or maybe testing us to the limit." Miguel sighed heavily. "If you're going to tell it, Helena, then tell it right. Tell everything. No point in telling half of it." She took his hand. "You're right, my... After all this time, the time has come for the full truth." Man, I was driving on autopilot. My attention was 100% on their conversation. The traffic had gotten better, but I started driving slower, you know? I wanted that ride to last longer. "All right then, I'll tell Ricardo how we really met," said Helena. "But there's something you need to know first, my son." "What, Helena?" She paused dramatically and said, "For the first 30 years of our marriage, I lied to Miguel about how we met. And he, well, he also kept a few little secrets." Guys, what a bombshell. I looked at Miguel in the rearview mirror and his face was red, a little embarrassed, a little nervous. What was this story about lies and little secrets? "What do you mean, Helen? You lied to each other?" "It's not really lying, Ricardo," Miguel said, finally speaking. "It's just that sometimes life is more complicated than it seems. Sometimes you have to hide things to protect the one you love, or to protect yourself," she added, with a slightly bitter tone. Man, the tension. I felt like I was getting into something very deep, very intimate, but at the same time, I was super curious. Who has never wanted to know the secrets of a couple that lasted over 50, right? At that moment, we got to a red light, and I took the opportunity to turn around and look at them properly. Helena was holding Miguel's hand tightly, but I noticed he was shaking it. "Are you sure you want to talk about this?" I asked, a little worried. "I am," she said, determined. "Do you know why, Ricardo? Because today, at the hospital, I got some news that changed everything. News that made me realize I can't live with secrets anymore." Miguel looked at her, startled. "Helena, you're not going to..." "Yes, I am, Miguel. The time has come." The light turned green. I accelerated, and my heart was pounding. What was this news? What were these secrets? And man, you can't even imagine what's coming next. If you've ever experienced a love that completely changed your life, leave a comment telling me what it was like, because the story of Helena and Miguel will show you that true love goes through every test that life throws at it. Stay tuned for the next chapter, where you'll find out what really happened on that night in 1972, and I guarantee you, it's not what you're imagining. All right, everyone, after that cliffhanger in the last chapter, you must be dying to know what this is all about, right? So was I. Man, the atmosphere in the car was tense, but at the same time, I felt like an incredible story was about to unfold. We pulled away from the light, and Helena took a deep breath, like someone preparing to dive into a deep... Miguel continued holding her, but now it seemed more like a gesture of support than... "Stop it." "Okay, Ricardo," she began, and her voice changed. Completely. It became softer, more nostalgic, as if she had gone back in time. "I'm going to tell you how I really met this wonderful man who was next to me." I slowed down even more. Man, I wanted that ride to last about 3 hours. It was March 1972. I had just turned 23 and worked as a teacher at a small school downtown. I still lived with my parents in a small house in the suburb, but it was full of love. At least I thought it was full of... Her voice sounded a little bitter at that part. Miguel squeezed her hand tighter, like, "I'm here. You can continue." Back then, Ricardo, things were very different. A woman had to get married as a virgin, couldn't go out alone at night, couldn't even talk properly to a man who wasn't a family member. I was a good girl, you know? I obeyed my parents, went to church every Sunday, and dreamed of a white wedding in a church and having 3 children. I was imagining the scene, the 70s, a time I only knew from movies, my grandmother's stories. It must have been tough for a young... I had a fiancé, Antonio, a good family boy, as my parents said, son of a merchant, well-educated, well-behaved. We dated for 2 years. He asked for my hand in marriage, doing everything by the book. We were going to get married in December of that same year. And what happened? I asked, already imagining things were about to go south. Helena gave a sad little laugh. "Oh, son, life has so many surprises for us." On March 15th, 1972, a Wednesday. I'll never forget, I left school early because I wasn't feeling a headache, nausea, those things. I thought it was the flu. She paused, looking out the window, as if she were watching the past pass by. Instead of going home, I decided to surprise Antonio at his office. I bought some pastries at a bakery and went there, all happy, thinking of telling him about the nausea, joking that it could be hunger or wedding jitters. Man, I could already sense a bomb was coming. Miguel got a little tense in the back seat. I got to the building, went up to the third floor where his office was. The secretary wasn't at her desk, so I went straight to his office. And when I opened the door, she stopped talking. She was silent for about 30 seconds, just breathing deeply. "Helena," Miguel said softly. "No, my love, let me tell it." When I opened the door, Ricardo, I saw my fiancé with his secretary on top of the office desk, doing, well, you get the picture. Man, what a situation. I could imagine the poor woman's shock. The 70s, a good girl, 2 years of dating, a wedding planned, and boom, she catches her fiancé sleeping with another woman. Wow, Helena. And then what? Then my son. It was the end of my world. They didn't even really see me. I ran out, threw the pastries in the trash, and ran down the stairs crying. I left the building like a crazy person, in that light rain that was falling, and I just walked the streets of downtown aimlessly. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw that her eyes were watery, even after 50 years. Miguel put his arm around. Just imagine, Ricardo. I was 23. I had never kissed another man. I had never gone out alone at night. I had never questioned anything in my life. And all of a sudden, I found out that the man I was going to marry, the father of the children I dreamed of having, was cheating on me with a 30-year-old married woman. Her voice was choked up now. I felt of pain for the girl she was. I walked around the city until about 9 p.m. It was raining harder and harder. I was soaked. I didn't have enough money for the bus. I was far from home, and I was completely lost. Not physically, but lost in life itself. "And that's when you met?" I asked. "That's when I got into the first taxi I saw," she said, looking at her husband with a small smile. An old light blue car, but it was clean, and when I opened the door, Miguel smiled too. A soaked girl got in, crying, shaking from the cold and nerves. "Miguel!" She nudged him with her elbow. "Let me tell it." How cute. Even after 50 years, they still bickered like teenagers. "As I was saying," she continued, pretending to be I got into the taxi and the driver turned to me. He was a young man, about 25 years old, neatly combed dark hair, kind eyes, and the first thing he said was, "Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital?" I looked at Miguel in the rearview mirror. "You were worried about her?" "Of course, son." The girl got into my car looking like she had seen a ghost. Soaked, shaking, red eyes from crying. I thought she had been in an accident or mugged, Helena continued. "And do you know what he did, Ricardo? Instead of asking me where I wanted to go, he took a small towel from the glove compartment and gave it to me. He said, 'First, dry off, then we'll see where you want to go.'" How come? Imagine the scene. 1972, a lost, crying girl and a taxi driver being kind in a big city. It must have been rare. Then I started crying even more, because it had been a long time since anyone had been that kind to me, you know? At home, it was just demands. "Helena, behave properly. Helena, a girl from a good family doesn't do that. Helena, think about what people will say." And this stranger, out of nowhere, was being more caring with me than my own fiancé. I was getting emotional, guys. The story was becoming beautiful. "And what did you say to him?" "I said I wanted to get far away from, that I wanted to disappear, that I wanted to go somewhere where no one knew me and I could start my life from scratch." Miguel gave a little laugh. "And I, like a fool, asked if she wanted to go to Santa Monica." "Santa Monica?" I almost yelled. "But Helena, you didn't have any money." "Exactly. I told him I only had a few bucks, not even enough to get downtown. And do you know what this wonderful man did?" I was already guessing, but I wanted to hear it from her. He said, "Don't worry about that now. Let's take a drive. You tell me what happened, and then we'll see what we do." And he started driving, slowly, through the streets of Los Angeles. "And you told him what had happened?" "I told him everything, Ricardo. I cried. I vented. I talked about the fiancé, the family, the pressure to get married, about how I felt trapped in a life that wasn't mine. And he listened. Oh, how he listened to me." Miguel was smiling, with that look of someone reminiscing about a special moment. "Do you remember what you said to her?" "Yes, I do. I said she was too young to settle for a life she didn't want. That betrayal is unforgivable. And if the guy did that before getting married, imagine after. And that sometimes life gives us a shake-up to show us we were on the wrong path." Helena looked at him with a look of love. "And then he said something that changed my life for..." "What did he say?" "He said that if I really wanted to start over, he would help me. That he knew of a boarding house near Echo Park where single women could stay, and that the owner was a good person. That I could find a job at another school, far from my family and my ex-fiancé." Man, what an attitude. A guy who had met this girl 2 hours ago and was already offering to help her rebuild her life. "And you agreed?" "I agreed right away. For the first time in my life, I was making a decision for myself, without consulting my parents, my fiancé, a priest, no one. And you went to this boarding house? We did. But the taxi ride lasted all night, Ricardo. All night. We stopped at a diner. He bought a sandwich for us to share. We talked about everything. Dreams, fears, family, work. I had never talked so much with a man in my life, Miguel added. And I had never met a woman so smart, so brave. A teacher who knew how to talk about books, politics, life. I was enchanted. Oh, Miguel, stop it. She blushed like a teenager. Man, what kind of love is this? After 50 years, and they still get embarrassed. And how did that night end? Helena suddenly became serious. It ended with him dropping me off at the door of the boarding house at 6 in the morning. He gave me a piece of paper with his phone number and said that if I needed anything, I just had to call. And you called? I called the same day, at 3 in the afternoon, after I got a job at a school nearby. I wanted to thank him. No? And also, well, I also wanted to hear his voice again. They looked at each other and smiled. I was emotional with the story when Helena said something that took me by surprise. But Ricardo, there's one thing about this story that I never told Miguel. Miguel looked at, what do you mean, something I lied to you about that night, and that I've carried with me all these years. Man, what's this bomb now? I thought the story was beautiful, romantic, and now there's a twist? What is it, Helena? She took a deep breath and looked at her husband. Miguel, do you remember I said I was running away because I discovered my fiancé's betrayal? I remember. Well, that was only half the truth. Miguel became tense. What do you mean, half the truth? And Helena, with a trembling voice, dropped the bombshell. I wasn't just running away because of the betrayal, Miguel. I was running away because I was pregnant. Guys, the silence that fell in that car was out of this world. Miguel went as white as a sheet, looked at me in the rearview mirror as if he had seen a ghost, and then looked at his wife with an expression I will never forget. It was a mix of shock, sadness, and deep pain, as if he had been punched in the stomach. Pregnant? He murmured. You were pregnant that night? I was, Miguel. And it wasn't Antonio. Man, what a twist is this. I almost crashed the car. Helena was pregnant with another man's baby, ran away from home, met Miguel in the taxi, and never told him about it in 50 years of marriage. And the worst part, from Miguel's face, this was completely new information for. What happened to this baby? Did she lose it? Did she give it up for adoption? And who was the real father? Guys, this story is getting more and more intense. In the next chapter, you'll discover the whole truth about this secret pregnancy and how it affected their marriage all these years. Guys, did you see the bombshell Helena dropped at the end of the last chapter? Man, the atmosphere inside the car changed completely. It was as if someone had thrown a bucket of ice-cold water on everyone. Miguel was looking at his wife with a face that mixed shock, pain, and total confusion. It was as if he couldn't process what he had just heard. Pregnant, he repeated very softly, as if talking to himself. You were pregnant that night, and you never told me. Helena's eyes were full of tears, but they weren't tears of sadness. It was relief, you know? As if a gigantic weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Miguel, I wanted to tell you, but what, Helena? 50 years, woman. 50 years of keeping this from me. Man, his voice came out louder than I expected. You could feel the pain, the anger, the sense of betrayal. I was driving and at the same time trying not to look like I was paying attention, but it was impossible not to be affected. Miguel, please, let me explain everything, she said, holding the hand he had let go of when he heard the news. Explain? Helena, how do you explain a half-century lie? How do you explain looking your husband in the face every day, knowing that he doesn't know the truth about how you met? I had never seen an elderly couple fighting like it. Was heartbreaking, guys. You could feel the love they had for each other, but also all the pain of that revelation. Ricardo, Helena addressed me, her voice choked up. Can you pull over at a gas station or somewhere? I think this conversation is going to take a while. Man, I was passing a gas station on the highway. I pulled in, turned off the car, and turned to them. Look, I can get out of the car if you want to talk in private. No, she said quickly. Please stay. I need to tell this to someone, and you seem like a good person. Besides, she looked at Miguel. Maybe it's better to have a wit. Miguel sighed deeply and nodded. I turned off the meter and settled in to hear what promised to be the most intense conversation of my life as a rideshare driver. All right, Helena, you said you were pregnant that night. Whose baby was it? She took a deep breath and began. Ricardo, in the 70s, things were very different. An unmarried pregnant woman was a disgrace to the whole world, not just to the family. My parents would have killed me, literally. Miguel was silent, but I could see in the rearview mirror that he was paying attention to every word. I had a cousin, Val. He was about 8. years older than me, married, a family man. He was always the nice cousin, you know? The one the whole family praised, who came to parties with his wife and children, who seemed to be the perfect man. Man, I could already see where this was going. On Christmas Eve 1971, he showed up alone at my family's dinner. He said his wife had traveled with the kids to her mom's house. I was 22, engaged to Antonio, and super naive. I didn't suspect a thing. She paused and looked out the window. Miguel remained silent, but I noticed he clenched his fists. After dinner, Val offered to drive me to my friend's house, where there was going to be a party. My parents let me go because he was family, right? And he had a car, which was rare back then. Her voice started to tremble, but instead of taking me to my friend's house, he stopped in a dark place and Miguel closed his eyes. Helena, don't. I have to say it, Miguel. He forced himself on me. I screamed, I cried, I begged. But he said that if I told anyone, he would tell my parents that I had seduced him. That a good girl doesn't get left alone with a married man if she doesn't want something. Man, how horrible. I felt so much anger towards this guy, Val. The poor woman had been assaulted by her own cousin. And you didn't tell anyone? I asked. Who would I tell, Ricardo? My dad, who would have been ashamed of me. My fiancé, who would have broken up with me thinking I wasn't pure anymore. Back then, the blame always fell on me, no matter what happened. Miguel opened his eyes and looked at her. You could have told me. When we met, you could have told me. Could I? Miguel, we had known each other for 3 hours. Was I supposed to walk up to a stranger and say I was pregnant from being assaulted by my own cousin? You would have run away. No, I wouldn't have. You don't know me then. I didn't know you then. We had just met. Man, what a heavy argument. I was stuck in the middle, trying to understand both sides. On one hand, Helena had kept a terrible secret for 50 years. On the other, Miguel felt betrayed for never having known the truth. And what happened to the baby, Helena? I asked gently. She started crying. When I found out I was pregnant in February of '72, I was desperate. 2 months later was when I caught Antonio with his secretary. That's when I decided to run away from home. Run away because of the pregnancy? Run away because of everything. The fiancé's betrayal was just the last straw. I was already desperate, not knowing what to do about the pregnancy, and then to find out that the man I was going to marry was cheating on. It was too much for me, Miguel asked in a very soft voice. And when you met me that night in the taxi, did you already know you were pregnant? I knew, Miguel. I knew everything. I knew I was pregnant. I knew I couldn't go back home. I knew I had nowhere to go. I knew my life as I knew it was over. And why didn't you tell me? She turned to him. Because you were the first person to be kind to me in months. Because you listened to me. You respected me. You helped me without asking for anything in return. And because I fell in love with you that night, Man, even with all that tension when she said that, you could see the love in both their eyes. I also fell in love with you that night, he said, calmer now. But Helena, don't you think I deserve to know the truth? Of course you did. But every time I was about to tell you, I was afraid. Afraid you would leave me. Afraid you would judge me. Afraid you would look at me differently. And the baby, what happened? Helena closed her eyes and let out the most painful revelation. I had the girl in November '72. We named her Anna, and I was forced to give her up for adoption. The silence that fell in the car was absolute. Even the street noises seemed to disappear. A daughter, Miguel murmured. You had a daughter and you never told me. Miguel, I was 23 years old. I was alone, working as a teacher and earning a pittance. How was I going to raise a child? And you were a taxi driver. You also didn't earn much. There was no way, but we could have tried. We could have figured something out. Could we? Miguel, we barely knew each other. Were you going to take on a daughter who wasn't yours? If she was yours, she was mine too. Don't you understand that? I loved you. Helena, if you had told me, I would have taken care of both of you. Man, my eyes were filled with tears hearing that. Their pain was palpable. 50 years of a happy marriage, but built on a painful lie. And do you know where she is today? I asked. Helena looked at me with a strange expression. Yes, Ricardo. That's why I said at the beginning that I got some news at the hospital today that changed everything. Miguel sat up straight. What news, Helena? Anna, our Anna, she's admitted at the same hospital we just left today. What? He yelled. She has cancer, Miguel. Terminal stage. The doctor said she has 2 weeks at most. Guys, what a twist is this? The daughter she gave up for adoption 50 years ago is dying in the same hospital where they had their checkup? How did you find out about this? Miguel asked, completely shocked. Because she looked for me. 3 months ago, she found out who her biological parents were, and she called me. We've been talking, in secret. Today I went to visit her after my appointment, and that's when the doctors gave me the news about her condition. Miguel was as white as a ghost. You're telling me that for 3 months you've been talking to our daughter, and you told me nothing? She's not our daughter, Miguel. She's mine. You didn't even know she existed. Of course I didn't know. You never told me. Man, they were yelling. 50 years of marriage crumbling in front of me because of secrets kept for too long. Miguel, calm down. She tried to take his hand. Calm down. Calm down. Helena, you kept the existence of a daughter from me for 50 years. And now you tell me she's dying and that you've known each other for 3 months. How do you expect me to be calm? He opened the car door. I need some air. I need to think. And he got out of the car, leaving Helena crying in the back seat. Man, I've never felt so lost in a situation. What do you do when you witness the collapse of a 50-year marriage? I looked at Helena in the rearview mirror. Helena, do you want me to take you home? No, Ricardo, I want to go back to the hospital. I want to see my daughter. At that moment, Miguel got back into the car. He got in and slammed the door. Then let's go to the hospital. I also want to meet this daughter you've hidden from me for half a century. But then Helena said something that made the situation even more tense. Miguel, there's one more thing you need to know before you meet her. My God, Helena! What else? Anna. She knows who her biological father is. Miguel went cold. And who is it? Helena took a deep breath. Remember I told you about my cousin Val? The bastard who assaulted you? He died last year. But before he died, his wife found out about me and Anna. And she told Anna everything. Told her what exactly? That she was conceived in an assault. That her biological father was a monster. And that her mother was me. Man, the situation was getting heavier and heavier. But then Miguel said something that surprised me. Helena, look at me. Look at me closely. She raised her tear-filled eyes. You spent 50 years carrying this pain alone. 50 years blaming yourself for something that wasn't your fault. 50 years protecting our marriage from a truth you thought would drive me away. His voice was different, softer, more understanding. I'm hurt, Helena. I'm hurt because you didn't trust me, but I understand why. And now I want to meet our daughter. Our daughter? She's the daughter of the woman I love. That makes her my daughter too. Man, I cried. I really cried. What a man. After finding out his wife lied for 50 years, he still says, our daughter. But then, Helena dropped another bomb. Miguel, there's one last thing. He sighed. Say it, Helena. After all this, what else could there be? You have secrets too, don't you? He became tense. What do you mean? That night in 1972, you weren't exactly a taxi driver, were you? Guys, now it was Miguel's turn to go white. What is this story? What secret has Miguel also been keeping for 50 years? In the next chapter, you'll find out what Miguel's secret is, and how this revelation will shake up this couple even more. Who thought they knew each other after half a century? Guys, did you see the bombshell Helena dropped at the end of the last chapter? Now it was Miguel's turn to be on the hot seat. Man, the tension inside. The car was unbearable. Miguel was silent for about 30 seconds after Helena asked if he wasn't exactly a taxi driver on that night in 1972. I could see in the rearview mirror that he was sweating cold, fidgeting with his hands, like a kid who's been caught doing something wrong. Miguel, Helena insisted. Answer the question. He sighed deeply, took off his glasses, wiped them with his shirt, something nervous people always do, right? And looked at her. Helena, after everything you told me today, do you think that matters? Yes, it does. If we're going to clear the slate completely, let's do it right. I don't want any more secrets between us. Man, her determination was impressive. After dropping her own bombshells, she wanted the complete truth. Okay, he said in a tired voice. Okay, I'll tell you. But first, Ricardo, promise me something? I turned to him. What is it, Miguel? Promise you won't judge me? That you won't leave here thinking I'm a criminal? Man, what a request. My curiosity went through the roof. I promise, Miguel. After everything I've heard today, I don't judge anyone. He took a deep breath and began. Ricardo, on that night in March 1972, I was not a taxi driver. In fact, I had never professionally driven a taxi in my life. Helena frowned. What do you mean, Miguel? You drove all night. I did, but that taxi, I had just stolen that taxi. Total silence. If the last chapter's bombshell was nuclear, this one was a level 9. Earthquake. I almost choked on my own spit. What do you mean, stole it? Helena yelled. Miguel, you saved me that night. How can you say you stole the taxi? Helena, calm down. Let me explain everything properly. He straightened up in the seat and began to tell his story. In 1972, I was 25 and worked at a metal factory. I didn't earn much, but it was honest work. I lived in a crummy boarding house near the factory, and I dreamed of saving up money to get married and have a family. His voice got quieter. But I had a problem, Ricardo. I gambled. Gambled what? Everything. Cards, dice, horse racing. I was a real addict. I'd lose my rent money, my grocery money. Sometimes I'd go hungry because I had bet it all. Helena was looking at him with a, Who was this man I married? Face. It was shocking to see her discovering a side of her husband she never imagined existed. And on March 15th, 1972, he continued, the worst thing in my life happened up to that point. I owed money to a dangerous loan shark, a guy who didn't mess around, if you know what I mean. I understood perfectly. The 70s, a dangerous loan shark, that meant a broken leg, or worse. How much did you owe? Helena asked. $300, which today would be, I don't know, maybe $15,000. Man, $15,000 in 1972. For the salary back then, it was a fortune. And the guy gave me until midnight that day to pay. He said if I didn't show up with the money, he was going to visit me at work the next day. Helena asked, and you didn't have the money? I didn't have a penny, Helena. I had bet my entire salary on a cockfight the week before and lost everything. He ran his hand over his face, like someone remembering a nightmare. I spent the whole day desperate, begging for money from everyone I knew. No one had it, or no one wanted to lend it to a gambling addict. And then what? Then at 7 p.m., I was walking the streets downtown, not knowing what to do when I saw that light blue car parked in front of a bar. The driver, an older gentleman, had gone in to have a drink. I could already see where this was going. The keys were in the ignition, the door was open, and in my desperate head, a thought came. If I take this taxi, I can work all night, get the $300, and return the car in the morning without anyone knowing. Miguel, Helena exclaimed, horrified. I know, Helena, I know it was wrong, but I was desperate. It was that or get beaten to death by the loan shark. And you took the car? I did. I got in, started it, and drove off. My idea was to do rides all night, get the money, pay the loan shark, and return the taxi to where I got it before sunrise. Man, how crazy. The guy became a rogue taxi driver out of desperation. And how did you know how to drive a taxi? Did you know the streets? I didn't know a damn thing, Ricardo. Sorry for the language, Helen. I barely knew how to drive properly. I had only gotten my license 6 months earlier. Helena shook her head. I can't believe you did that. Well, I did. And the worst part, in the first 2 hours, I only got 2 small rides. I had only made about $15. At the rate I was going, I wouldn't even make $50 all night. And then what? Then I was already thinking of giving up, leaving the car somewhere and running away to another city, when a soaked, crying girl who looked like she had just gone through the worst thing in her life stopped in front of me. He looked at Helena with a small smile. And when that girl got into my taxi and said she wanted to go far away, I thought, perfect, this is my salvation. A long ride, I'll make some good money. How romantic, she said, a little sarcastically. You saved me for financial gain. No, Helena, listen to the rest of the story. He turned to her. When you got in the taxi, crying like, my heart ached. I completely forgot about the money. I forgot about the loan shark. I forgot about everything. I just wanted to know what had happened to you, how I could help. His voice was emotional. And when you started telling me about your fiancé's betrayal, about how you felt trapped, about the dreams you had, man, I identified with it so much. I also felt trapped. I was also running away from my problem. But you didn't tell me about the gambling, about the stolen taxi. How was I going to tell you, Helena? Hey, ma'am, I'm a gambling-addicted thief who stole this taxi 3 hours ago. You would have jumped out of the moving car. Man, he had a point. Imagine the scene. A traumatized girl gets into a taxi and finds out the driver is a fugitive criminal. And what happened to the loan shark's money? I asked. Miguel gave an awkward little laugh. That's the craziest part, Ricardo. That night I spent with Helena, talking, getting to know her, listening to her problems. It was the first time in years that I spent hours without thinking about gambling. What do you mean? I felt useful, you know? I felt important in someone's life. Helena needed me, she trusted me, and I couldn't disappoint her. For the first time in my life, I had something more important to think about than betting. Helena was listening in silence, with an expression that mixed anger, sadness, and affection. When morning came and I dropped you off at the boarding house, I had a choice. Return the taxi and face the loan shark, or keep running. And what did you do? I went to find the taxi's owner. You did what? Helena almost screamed. I went to him, told him the truth, and asked for forgiveness. I said I had stolen the car out of desperation, but that I had changed my mind, that I wanted to make things right. And he didn't report you? He almost did. But when I told him the whole story, about the gambling addiction, about the loan shark, about how meeting you had changed my perspective, he made me an offer. What offer? He said he needed a driver, that if I wanted to work honestly, he would give me a job as a real taxi driver, a fixed salary plus a percentage of the fares. Man, what a twist. The guy he stole from became his boss. And you accepted? I accepted right away. And do you know what the first thing I did with my first paycheck was? Helena shook her head. I paid the loan shark. I left my life of crime. I stopped gambling, and I became an honest man. All because of you, Helena. Her eyes were filled with tears. Miguel, but there's more, he continued. Do you know why I called you the next day? It wasn't just because I had fallen in love. It was because you saved me, Helena. You saved me from a life of crime. How did I save you? I didn't even know about any of this. You showed me what it was like to have someone to protect, someone for whom it was worth being a better person. When you told me your problems, when you trusted me, I realized I could be more than a desperate gambling addict. Man, what a story. They saved each other without even knowing it. But Miguel, Helena asked, why did you never tell me this? Why did you keep it a secret for 50? For the same reason you kept your secret, out of fear. Fear that you would find out you fell in love with a former thief, a former gambling, fear that you would leave me. They looked at each other in silence it was as if 50 years of marriage had collapsed, and they had to get to know each other all over it. So, she said slowly, we met because you had stolen a taxi, and I was pregnant and running away from home. What a romantic beginning to our marriage, huh? Yeah, he laughed awkwardly. It's not exactly the story we told our grandkids. At that moment, I decided to chime in. Guys, can I say something? You were both in a desperate situation. You made choices you thought were your only options, and even so, you helped each other. That doesn't make you bad people. It makes you people who made mistakes, but who found each other at the right moment to fix yourselves. They both smiled at Ricardo's right, said Helena. Maybe we found each other precisely because we needed each other. Maybe, Miguel agreed. But Helena, now that the whole truth is out, what are we gonna do about our daughter? And man, you're not gonna believe what she answered. Miguel, there's one more thing about Anna that I still haven't told you. I don't believe it. More secrets? Man, this woman is a box of surprises. What else, Helena? Miguel almost exploded. Anna, she's not just my daughter, Miguel. What do you mean? She's our daughter. What a bombshell is this now? Guys, are you able to keep up with all these twists and turns? Comment below what you think will happen, because this story is getting more and more intense. In the next chapter, you'll find out what Helena meant by she's our daughter, and how this revelation will change everything in this couple's life. Guys, do you think you've seen it all in this story? Well, hold on to your seats, because the bombshell Helena dropped at the end of the last chapter is going to blow everything up. She's our daughter. Man, when she said that, Miguel looked at her as if she had spoken Chinese. I was also lost, I won't. Helena, for God's sake, he said. His voice changed. How can Anna be our daughter? You just told me she was conceived when that bastard cousin of yours hurt you. Helena took a deep breath and held his hands. Miguel, listen to what I'm going to tell you and don't interrupt me, okay? Because this part of the story is the most painful. I completely turned off the car radio. The silence had to be absolute for this revelation. Do you remember I told you we met on March 15th, 1972? I remember. And do you remember I said I found out I was pregnant in February? I remember that too. Then do the math, Miguel frowned, thinking, February, March. If you found out you were pregnant in February, and we met in March. Exactly. Then when we met, you were already a little over a month pregnant. Exactly. So what? I don't get what you're trying to say. Helena looked at me in the rearview mirror. Ricardo, do you have kids? I have an 8-year-old daughter. Then you know we never forget important dates, right? The date of the first appointment, the date of the first ultrasound, the due date. I know. Miguel, Anna was born on December 20th, 1970. Miguel did the math in his head. December. If she was born in December and you found out you were pregnant in February, do the math right, Man, I saw the exact moment it clicked for him. His eyes widened, his mouth dropped open, and he went as white as a sheet. No, it can't be. It can, Miguel. Anna was not conceived in late December 1971 when that horrible thing happened. She was conceived in late March 1972. Guys, I almost crashed the car. Late March 1972. They met in mid-March. Helena, Miguel's voice was trembling. Are you telling me that? I'm telling you that Anna was conceived about 10 days after we met, Miguel. When you came to visit me at that boarding house and you know what happened. Man, what a twist is this? The daughter she gave up for adoption wasn't from her cousin's assault. She was Miguel's. But Helena, he yelled. Why? Did you never tell me this? Why did you let me believe she was the daughter of an assault for 50 years? Because I wasn't sure, Miguel. Because the doctor said she could have been conceived between late December and early April. Because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of being wrong. Afraid you would take on a daughter who might not be yours. Afraid of ruining your life. She started crying. Miguel, do you have any idea what it was like to be a single mother in 1972? What it was like to have a daughter without knowing who the father was? I preferred to believe she was from the assault than to risk telling you and finding out I was wrong. And what a complex situation. The woman spent 50 years thinking her daughter might be the result of an assault, when in reality she was probably the daughter of the great love of her life. But Helena, Miguel asked, calmer now, did you never think of doing a test? A DNA test? Miguel, DNA testing was only invented in the 80s. And when it was invented, I no longer knew where Anna was. I only managed to find her this year. How did you manage to find her? Helena dried her tears. She found me, Miguel. In January of this year, she called me. How did she get your number? She works as a social worker here in over 20 years. She has access to City Hall archive. She knows people at the courthouse, orphanage, those kinds. She spent years looking. Miguel was processing, and what did she say when she called? She said, "Hello, Helena. My name is Anna Christina. I think I'm your daughter." Man, I almost fainted when I heard that. I could imagine the shock, after 50 years, getting a phone call like that out of nowhere. And then we arranged to meet at a mall. I was as nervous as a teenager on a first date. I got there and saw a beautiful, elegant 49-year-old woman who had my eyes and your way of smiling, Miguel. Miguel swallowed hard. She looks like me? Very much. She has your nose, your way of tilting your head when you're thinking, your habit of fidgeting with your hands when you're nervous. And you never told me about these meetings? How was I going to tell you? Hey, honey, remember that daughter I never told you existed? Well, she found me, and we've been seeing each other in secret. She had a point. How do you explain 50 years of a secret all at once? And what did she tell you about her life? I asked. Helena smiled for the first time that day. Oh, Ricardo, she had a good life. She was adopted by a wonderful couple. She studied, she graduated in social work, and she worked her whole life helping underprivileged families. She married a good man, had 2 beautiful children. Is she married? She was. Her husband died in a car accident 5 years ago, but the children are wonderful. One is a doctor, the other is a teacher. Our grandkids, Miguel. We have grandkids who are 25 and 23 years old. Miguel's eyes were watery. Grandkids, and they don't know we exist. Anna never told them she had found her biological. She said she wanted to be sure of what our relationship would be like before involving the kids. What else did she tell you? She told me she always wanted to meet me, not with anger. She understood that I was very young when I got pregnant, that the situation must have been difficult. She said her adoptive parents were always honest with her about the adoption. Helena's voice got emotional. And do you know what else she told me, Miguel? She said she always imagined that her biological father must be a good person, because she felt she had inherited good things that didn't come from her adoptive family. Like what? The way she's kind to everyone, how she helps people in need, how she believes that people can change for the better. She said that came from her blood. Miguel cried. He really cried, like a child. She said that? She did. And I cried because I recognized you in her, Miguel. I recognized the man who saved me on that night in 1972, and I was emotional too. What a beautiful story. And why is she in the hospital now? I asked. The mood got heavy, because 3 months ago when she called me, she already had cancer. Very aggressive breast cancer. And how is the treatment? It's not working, Ricardo. That's why she hurried to find me. She knew she didn't have much time. Miguel asked, and does she know about me? She does. I told her I had been married for 50 years, that you were a wonderful man, but that you didn't know she existed. And what did she say? She said she understood, that she didn't judge me, and that she would really like to meet her father. Her father, she called me her father? She did. She said, Mom, I know you're not sure if he's my biological father, but if he loved you all these years knowing you had a lost daughter in the world, then he's already my father in my heart. Man, I cried. What maturity from this Anna. Miguel, Helena continued, she really wants to meet you, and she wants to meet you before she dies. Yes. Miguel became determined. Then let's go to the hospital. I want to meet my daughter. Are you sure? Helena, you spent 50 years torturing yourself thinking our daughter was the result of a crime. I spent 50 years not knowing I had a daughter in the... We've lost too much time. Let's not lose another minute. At that moment, I turned on the car. So, it's back to Cedar Sinai? It is, they said together. As I drove, Helena said, Miguel, there's one more thing you need to know before you meet her. Oh my God. Helena, what else? Anna, she did a DNA test. What do you mean? Last month, when her condition worsened, she asked to do a test to be sure of the paternity. In case she died, she wanted to make everything clear for her children. Miguel became tense. And what was the result? Helena smiled. 99.7% certain that you are her biological father, Miguel. Guys, the silence that fell in the car was absolute. 99.7%. There was no doubt anymore. How did she get my DNA? He asked. Remember that day you cut your finger in the kitchen and I took you to the clinic to get a tetanus shot? I remember. I took the cotton with your blood on it and saved it. I gave it to Anna. Helena, you did that without telling me? I did because I needed to be sure before I told you that you had a daughter dying of cancer. I didn't want to give you false hope. Man, the woman thought of everything. What planning? So, Miguel said slowly, Ana is really my daughter. She is, Miguel. You have a 49-year-old daughter, 2 grandkids in their 20s, and you're only going to meet them. At that moment, we arrived at the hospital. I stopped at the emergency room entrance and turned to them. Do you want me to wait? Helena took my hand. Ricardo, you're part of this story now. If you want, you can come up with us. I'm sure Ana would like to meet the driver who heard our whole story. Man, I wasn't going to miss that. A story I had followed from the beginning. Now I was going to see the ending. But as we were getting out of the car, Helena said something that chilled me. Miguel, just one more little thing. Ana doesn't know you just found out about. She thinks you always knew she existed. What do you mean, Helena? It's just that I lied to her too. Guys, who here has ever gone through a discovery that completely changed your life? Tell us in the comments what it was like to deal with a revelation like. In the next chapter, you'll see the first meeting between a father and daughter after 50 years, and you'll find out what lie Helena told Ana about Miguel. Guys, the moment you've been waiting for since the beginning has arrived. The meeting between a father and daughter after 50 years. But before you think it's all going to be rainbows and butterflies, get ready for another bombshell from Helena that's going to make your jaw drop. We were there at the hospital entrance, and I could feel the tension in the air. Miguel was nervous, fidgeting with his hands, breathing deeply. Helena was trying to calm down, smoothing her hair, checking her clothes in the reflection of the door glass. Miguel, before we go up, she began, but he interrupted her. Helena, that's enough. I can't handle any more secrets. Let's go up, meet our daughter, and then you can tell me what lie you told her. But Miguel, Helena, 49 years. Our daughter is 49 years old and I'm only meeting her today. I don't want to waste another minute on your lies. Man, he was really worked up. And I understood his side, right? Imagine finding out you have a daughter who's almost 50. We went into the hospital and headed straight for the elevator. Helena pressed the button for the 8th floor, oncology. My heart ached, just thinking about the situation. During the ride up, she tried one more time. Miguel, please, let me explain first. Explain upstairs in front of her. Enough of talking behind people's backs. The elevator stopped, the doors opened, and we walked down the hallway. The smell of a hospital, that tense silence, nurses walking back and forth. Helena stopped in front of room 847. It's here, she said, knocking softly on. Come in. A feminine voice came from inside. Helena slowly opened the door and went in first. Ana, honey, I brought a surprise for you. Miguel and I went in after her, and man, what a moment. Ana was lying on the hospital bed, in that blue gown, with a colorful scarf on her. She must have lost her hair from chemotherapy. But even so, you could see she was a beautiful woman, and it was impressive how much she looked like both of them. She had Helena's eyes and Miguel's smile. When she saw Miguel, her face lit up. Dad. Man, she called him. Dad. Miguel started crying right away, went to the bed and held her hand. Ana, my daughter. It was a scene from a movie, guys. The two of them looking at each other, crying. Her trying to sit up better in bed. Him not knowing if he could hug her. You can hug me, Dad. I won't break, she said, in a sweet voice that was very similar to Helena. They hugged, and I swear there wasn't a dry eye in that. Helena was crying. I was crying. Even a nurse who passed by the door got emotional. Ana, Miguel said, holding her face. Forgive me. Forgive me for not being present in your life. Dad, you don't need to ask for forgiveness. Mom already explained everything. I perfectly understand why you had to give me up for adoption. And that's when the confusion began. Miguel looked at Helena with, what was that explanation you gave? Face. Ana, honey, Helena began, embarrassed. Actually, your father didn't know about some things I told you. Ana frowned. What do you mean, Mom? It's just that, well, the situation was more complicated than I explained. Miguel couldn't take it anymore. Ana, your mother never told me you existed. I only found out today. Bombshell. Ana looked at both of them, not understanding. What do you mean you only found out today? Mom told me you both knew about me, but that you had to give me up for adoption because you were too young and didn't have the means. Helena went red. Ana, I didn't know. How to explain? Explain what, Mom? Man, the situation was getting tense. Ana was discovering that her mom had lied to her too. Miguel sat down on the chair next to the bed. Ana, let me tell you the truth. Your mother and I met in a very difficult situation. She was pregnant with, but she wasn't sure if I was the father. We only found that out a few weeks ago with a DNA test. Ana looked at her mom. Mom, you said you were sure from the beginning. Ana, honey, I said that because I didn't want you to think you were an accident, that you weren't wanted, but that's exactly what happened, wasn't it? Total silence. Anna, Miguel said, taking her. Look at me. It doesn't matter how you were conceived. It doesn't matter if you were planned or not. What matters is that you exist, that you're my daughter, and that I love you from the moment I knew you existed. She smiled, but it was a sad smile. Dad, thank you for saying that, but you don't need to lie to protect me. I'm 49 years old. I'm not a child anymore. At that moment, she looked at me. And you must be the Ricardo Mom talked about. I introduced myself, and she continued. Mom told me that you were the first person to know our story, that you heard everything in the car today. I did, Anna. And can I say something? Your parents love each other very much. They were wrong to keep secrets, but they did it to protect each other and you. I know, she said, and I'm not mad at you. I just wanted you to be honest with. We don't have much time for more lies. That sentence broke my. We don't have much time. She was talking about her death with a naturalness that was scary. Helena approached the bed. Anna, there's one more thing you need to know. Oh, Mom! Anna gave a little laugh. What else? It's about your children. They don't know you found me, do they? They don't. I wanted to be sure of what our relationship would be like before involving them. And would you like them to meet their grandparents? Anna's eyes filled with tears. Would you like to meet my children? Miguel answered right away. Of course we would. They're our grandkids, but they're adults. They have their own lives. I don't know if they'll want to meet unknown grandparents now. Anna, I chimed in. Can I say something? Every child, no matter what age, wants to know their family. Your children will be happy to know they have grandparents. She smiled. You think so? I'm sure of it. At that moment, the door to the room opened and a woman in her 30s, tall, with dark hair, and beautiful, came in. Mom, I brought the snack you asked for. She stopped when she saw us in the room. Sorry, I didn't know you had visitors. Anna looked at Helena and Miguel. This is Julia, my youngest daughter. Man, their granddaughter was in front of us. Julia, Anna said with an emotional, come here. I want to introduce you to some very special people. Julia approached, a little confused by the situation. Julia, these are Helena and Miguel, my parents. The girl was in shock. What do you mean your parents? You always said you didn't know your biological parents. Well, honey, life has these surprises. I found them a few months ago. Julia looked at the two elderly people. You're my grandparents? Helena couldn't take it. She got up and went to hug the girl. Hi, my beautiful granddaughter. Man, what an emotional scene. Julia started crying, hugging the grandmother she never imagined she would. Miguel also got up and went to hug his granddaughter. You're so beautiful. You look like your mother when she was young. Do you have any pictures of Mom when she was a baby? Julia. That's when the situation got heavy again. Helena and Miguel looked at each other. Julia, Anna said, it's complicated. When I was born, my parents were very young and had to give me up for adoption. They don't have any baby pictures of me. But why did you never look for me before? Julia asked her grandparents. And that's when Anna said something that changed everything. Julia, actually they did look for 20 years ago. What? Everyone in the room was in shock. Helena and Miguel looked at each other with a, what is this story now? Face. What do you mean 20 years ago? Helena asked. Mom, don't you remember? 20 years ago you sent me a letter at my work, explaining who you were, asking to meet me. Anna, I never sent a letter, Helena said. Of course you did. I still have the letter saved. Anna asked Julia to get a small box from the nightstand. From inside, she took out a letter yellowed by time. It's right here. Dear Anna, we are Helena and Miguel, your biological parents. After 29 years of searching for you, we finally found out where you are. We would love to meet you, if you allow it. With love, your parents, who never forgot you. Helena took the letter, read it, and went pale. Anna, I didn't write this. This is not my handwriting, and I never knew about this letter either, Miguel said. But then, who? Anna started to say, when a voice at the door of the room finished her sentence. I'm the one who wrote. Everyone turned to the door. There was a man about 45 years old, tall, wearing glasses, whom I had never seen before. Who are you? Miguel asked. The man entered. I'm Dr. Carlos, and 20 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my professional life. Guys, what a twist is this now? Who is this Dr. Carlos? Why did he send the letter pretending to be Anna's parents? And what mistake did he make 20 years ago? Who here has ever gone through a discovery that completely changed their life? Tell us in the comments what it was like to discover a truth you never imagined. In the next chapter, you'll find out who this Dr. Carlos is and what mistake he made that affected this family's life for 20 years. Guys, did you see Dr. Carlos's dramatic entrance at the end of the last chapter? Man, the atmosphere in the room got incredibly heavy. Everyone was looking at this man who appeared out of nowhere saying he made a mistake 20 years ago. Anna sat up in bed with a what is going on look on her face. Dr. Carlos, What are you doing here? I came to see you, Ana, like I always do. He looked at the others in the room. But I didn't know you had visitors. Miguel got up from the chair. Sorry, but who are you? And what's this story about a letter? Dr. Carlos took off his glasses, wiped them, and sighed deep. My name is Carlos Henrique dos Santos. I've been Ana's doctor for 15 years, ever since the cancer first appeared. First time? Helena asked, startled. Yes, Ana explained. I had cancer before, 15 years ago. Dr. Carlos cured me. Now it's back, more aggressive. Ana, Dr. Carlos said, approaching the time has come for me to tell you the truth. And your parents too. Julia was paying attention to everything. Dr. Carlos, what truth? He pulled up a chair and sat down. Ana, 20 years ago, when you first came to me wanting to find your biological parents, I made a terrible mistake. What mistake? She asked. I had information about your parents. Information I got through my contacts at the hospital you were born. But instead of helping you find them for real, I wrote that letter pretending to be them. Man, everyone in the room was in shock. But why? Ana yelled. Dr. Carlos lowered his head. Because I was in love with you, Ana. Bombshell. What do you mean, in love? Miguel exploded. You were her doctor. I know it was wrong. I know it was unethical. But Ana, you were a beautiful, intelligent, recently divorced woman. And I was a single 25-year-old doctor who fell in love with his patient. Ana was as white as the wall. Carlos, you lied to me for 20 years? Ana, let me explain everything. He pleaded. Explain right now! Helena yelled, furious. Dr. Carlos took a deep breath. When Ana came to me wanting to find her parents, I thought, if she finds them, she'll be busy with her new family and I'll never have a chance with her. So I forged the letter, pretending to be them. And what was your plan? Miguel asked. My plan was for her to keep waiting for a response from you that would never come. Then I would comfort her, tell her that maybe her parents didn't want contact. Little by little, I would win her over. Julia was horrified. Dr. Carlos, that's sick. I know, Julia. And the worst part is that it worked for a while. Ana was disappointed when you never answered her letter, and I was always there to comfort her. Ana interrupted him. Wait a minute. What letter of mine? The letter you gave me to give to your parents in 2004. But you said you would deliver it, she yelled. I lied, Ana. I never delivered it. Man, what a son of a bitch. Excuse my language, but what a disgusting person. He manipulated the situation for 20 years. Helena was shaking with, You mean my daughter tried to contact me in 2004 and you stopped her? Yes. And where is this letter? Miguel asked. Dr. Carlos took a yellowed envelope from his pocket. Here, I kept it all these years. Helena took the letter with trembling hands and began to read it aloud. Dear parents, I hope this letter finds you well. My name is Ana Cristina, and I believe you met me. When I was a baby, in 1972, I would love to meet you. Not with anger or resentment, but with love and gratitude. I have 2 wonderful children who would like to meet their grandparents. If you'd like to meet me, my number is, with love, Ana. The silence that fell in the room was so thick you could cut it with. Helena was crying. Miguel had his hand over his face. Ana was in shock, and Julia was looking at Dr. Carlos with disgust. 20 years, Ana murmured. 20 years that I could have met my parents, that my children could have met their grandparents. Ana, forgive me, Dr. Carlos pleaded. Forgive you? She exploded. Carlos, you stole 20 years of my life. 20 years that I spent thinking my parents didn't want me. But Ana, I always took good care of you. When the cancer came back, I did everything to save you. You did your job as a doctor. That doesn't erase what you did. At that moment, the door opened, and a tall, dark-haired young man in a white lab coat came in. He was clearly Ana's son. He had her face and the height of what must have been his father. Mom, I heard you had visitors and Dr. Carlos? He stopped when he saw the doctor. What are you doing here? I thought you weren't Mom's doctor anymore. Peter, Ana said. Come here, son. I want to introduce you to some people. Peter approached and she continued. This is Helena and Miguel, my parents. The young man stood still. What do you mean your parents? You always said. I know what I always said, but life is complicated, son. These are my biological parents, and consequently, your grandparents. Man, seeing the grandson meeting his grandparents for the first time was too emotional. Miguel got up and went to hug the young Peter, right? I'm your grandpa Miguel. Nice to meet you, grandpa, the young man said, still a little awkward. Helena also hugged him. What a handsome young man. Your mother said you're a doctor? I am, Grandma. I work here at the hospital in pediatrics. But then Peter looked at Dr. Carlos. Dr. Carlos, why are you here? And why does everyone look like they're at a funeral? Ana sighed. Peter, sit here. I need to tell you a story. And she told her son everything. The forged letter, the 20 lost years, Dr. Carlos's manipulation. Peter became more and more indignant. "Dr. Carlos," he said when his mother finished, "do you have any idea what you did? My mom spent years thinking her parents didn't want her. Peter, I know I was wrong. Wrong! Sir, you committed a crime. That's forgery." At that moment, I decided to chime in. "Dr. Carlos, can I ask you a question?" "You can. If you were in love with Anna, why did you never confess? Why did you hide this love for 20?" He turned red. "Because Anna never showed any interest in me on a doctor-patient relationship. And after her children grew up and she started as a social, she became obsessed with finding biological parents." Anna interrupted him. "And you always discouraged me. You always said it was better to leave the past alone." "Yes, because I didn't want you to find them and drift away from me." "Carlos, you are a sick man. You spent 20 years manipulating." Then Dr. Carlos said something that shocked everyone even more. "Anna, I didn't just do it out of love. I did it because I knew something about your parents that you didn't know." Everyone turned to him. "What?" "I knew that. Your biological father is not who you think he is." "Guys, what a bombshell is this now?" Miguel went pale. "What do you mean I'm not her father? We did a DNA test." "You did a test with whose DNA, Miguel?" "With my DNA. Helena took my blood." Dr. Carlos looked at Helena. "Helena, are you sure you took his blood?" Helena was confused. "Of course I am. I took the cotton after the tetanus shot." "What day was that?" "October 15th, on a Wednesday." Dr. Carlos took a paper from his pocket. "Helena, October 15th was a Tuesday, and Miguel didn't get a shot." Man, everyone was in shock. "How do you know that?" Miguel asked. "Because the one who got a tetanus shot that day was your next-door neighbor, Joe. And Helena, you took the wrong person's blood." Helena went pale. "No, it can't be." "Yes, it can. The DNA test you did was with Joe's DNA, not Miguel's." "Guys, what a twist is this? If the DNA wasn't Miguel's, then who is Anna's father?" Anna was looking at both of them. "So you're not my dad, Miguel?" "I don't know anymore, honey. I don't know anything anymore." And that's when Dr. Carlos dropped the final bombshell. "Anna, I know who your biological father is, and you won't believe it when you find out." Everyone was in total silence. "Who is it?" Anna asked, her voice weak. Dr. Carlos looked at her with a strange expression. "Anna, your biological father died last year, but before he died, he confessed to the whole family the truth about what happened in December 1970. Helena collapsed in the chair. "No, it can't be." "Yes, it can. Val confessed the truth before he died, but it wasn't an assault as you thought all these years." "What do you mean it wasn't an assault?" she yelled. "Helena, Val told me that you two had been having an affair for months, that you were in love with him, that you met in secret, that you planned to run away together." "That's a lie!" she screamed. "Is it a lie, Helena? Or is it just another truth you've hidden for 50 years? Man, the silence that fell in that room was apocalyptic. Helena was pale. Miguel was looking at her with a face of terror. Anna didn't know what to think. And me, guys? I was right in the middle of the biggest family bombshell in the history of rideshare apps. In the next chapter, you'll find out if Helena really had an affair with her cousin or if that's another lie. And what will Miguel's reaction be when he finds out he may have lived 50 years based on an even bigger lie? The story is coming to an end, but there's still one more twist coming. Guys, we've reached the final chapter of this story that has touched everyone's heart, and I guarantee you are not prepared for what's about to happen now. After the bombshell Dr. Carlos dropped about Helena having an affair with her cousin, the atmosphere in that hospital room was unbearable. Helena was sitting in the chair, as white as a sheet of paper, trembling. Miguel was standing, looking at her with a mixture of pain, anger, desperation that was heartbreak. Anna was in bed, not knowing if she was the daughter of an assault or an extramarital affair. And the grandkids, poor thing, were finding out that the family they had just met was already falling apart. "Helena," Miguel said, in a voice I had never heard before, loaded with 50 years of love and now with disappointment. "Answer the question. Did you have an affair with your cousin?" The silence lasted an eternity. Helena looked at him, then at Anna, then at the grandkids, and finally at me. It was as if she was looking for strength in each of us. "Miguel," she began, her voice cracking, "if I answer that question, do you promise you won't leave without hearing me to the end?" "Helena, after 52 years of marriage, after finding out I have a daughter who might not even be mine, you still want to make conditions? Please, Miguel, it's the last thing I'll ever ask you." He sighed deeply. "Okay, go ahead." Helena got up, went to the window of the room, and began to speak with her back to everyone. "In November 1971, 2 months before that terrible night, my parents traveled upstate to take care of my grandmother who was sick. They were going to be gone and I was home alone. Everyone was paying absolute attention. On the third day, Val showed up at the house. He said he was worried about me, that it wasn't safe for a young lady to be alone. He offered to sleep on the living room sofa to keep me company. Miguel closed his eyes, as if he already knew where this was going. I let him stay. He was family. My parents trusted him, and for the first 2 nights, he behaved properly. He slept in the living room. He was respectful. She turned to look at Anna. But on the 3rd night, honey, something happened that changed my life for— What was it, Mom? I woke up in the middle of the night to a noise in the kitchen. I went to see what it was, and I found Val sitting at the table crying. Her voice became different, softer. I asked him what had happened, and he told me that his wife had asked for a divorce, that she had found out he had gambling debts, that he had lost the family's savings, that she couldn't live with an addict anymore. Man, a gambling addict. Just like Miguel. He was desperate, Miguel. He said he had nowhere to go, that his whole family had turned their backs on him, that he felt like dying. And then what? Anna asked. Then I made the biggest mistake of my life. I comforted him. The silence was total. It wasn't planned. It wasn't premeditated. It was a moment of weakness for both of us. He was desperate. I felt sorry for him, and it happened. Miguel opened his eyes. How many times, Helena? Just once, Miguel. Just once. That night. The next day my parents came back. He left, and we never talked about it again. And what happened on Christmas, when you said he assaulted you? Helena started crying. On Christmas, when he came to dinner, I went up to him and told him I was afraid I was pregnant, that I had missed my period and I was terrified. And what did he say? He said that if I told anyone what had happened between us, he was going to tell everyone that I was the one who had seduced him, that he would say I was a tramp who took advantage of him in a moment of weakness. And what a son of a bitch. Excuse the language, but that's exactly what he was. And that's when he offered to drive me to my friend's house after. He said he wanted to talk to me alone. And you talked? Helena shook her head. We didn't talk, Miguel. He took me to that dark place and he forced himself on me. Only this time it was different. This time it was violent. It was against my will. He said that if I was really pregnant, it was better to make sure no one would suspect when it happened. Man, what a horrible situation. The guy abused her to confuse the dates. That's why when I found out I was pregnant, I didn't know if it was from the first time, when it was consensual, or from the second, when it was an assault. Miguel approached her. Helena, why did you never tell me this? Why did you let me believe it was just an assault? Because I was ashamed, Miguel. Ashamed of having been involved with my own cousin. Ashamed of having cheated on my fiancé. Even if it was just once. It was easier to see myself as a victim than as what? As a woman who made a mistake. Anna, who had heard everything in silence, spoke. Mom, you were 22. You were practically a child. You comforted a family member who was desperate. That doesn't make you a bad person. Yes, it does, Anna. Because I was engaged. Because I cheated on Antonio. Even if it was for a moment. Peter, who had also been silent, chimed in. Grandma, can I say something? You were manipulated twice by the same man. The first time, you were fooled by his vulnerability. The second, you were violated to hide his crime. In neither of those situations were you to blame. What a smart young man, a doctor and a psychologist. Miguel took Helena's hand. Helena, look at me. She raised her tear-filled eyes. You spent 50 years blaming yourself for something that wasn't your fault. Blaming yourself for having compassion for someone who took advantage of that compassion. But Miguel, if Anna is the daughter of that first night, so what? Anna is still our daughter. She's still the girl who made me a better man, who gave me 2 wonderful grandkids, who brought us this beautiful family that's here in this room. Man, what a man. After finding out he might not be the biological father, he's still taking on the paternity. But then Dr. Carlos, who had been quiet, listening to everything, decided to speak. Miguel, there's one more thing you need to know. What else? Everyone yelled together. I lied about the DNA test. Absolute silence. What do you mean you lied? Anna asked. The DNA test was done with Miguel's blood. I made up that story about the neighbor Joe to cause more confusion. But why? Miguel exploded. Because I wanted to destroy your family. I wanted Anna to be alone again so I could have a chance with her. Man, what a scumbag. The guy was truly sick. So, Miguel is my dad? Anna asked. He is, 99.7% certain. In other words, Anna was conceived in March 1972 after you two met. Helena collapsed in the chair. Then that night with Val didn't result in a pregnancy? No, Anna is your daughter with Miguel. Miguel hugged his wife. Helena, you spent 50 years carrying a guilt you didn't need to carry. Our daughter is our daughter. And then the most beautiful scene I've ever seen happened. The 2 old people hugged. Anna cried with relief. The grandkids hugged their grandparents, and everyone hugged in the middle of that hospital room. But then, Anna said something that broke everyone's heart. I'm so glad we could clear all this up before I go. Anna, don't talk like that, Julia said. Honey, you know my condition is terminal, but But do you know what gives me peace? Knowing that my parents found each other, that my children have grandparents, that this beautiful family you've built will continue to exist even after I'm gone. Miguel held her hand. Anna, you're not going anywhere. We're going to fight this disease together. Dad, I've fought a lot. 15 years of fighting cancer. Now I just want to enjoy the time I have left with you. At that moment, a nurse entered the room. Sorry to interrupt, but it's time for Anna's medication. When the nurse left, Anna looked at everyone. Can you do a favor for me? Anything, honey, Helena said. I want you to renew your wedding vows. Right here, at the hospital, in front of me. Anna, Miguel began. Please, you've built a beautiful, true love that survived 50 years of secrets, lies, and fears. I want to see you promise eternal love to each other one more time. How? Could anyone deny a request like that? But Anna, how are we going to do that? Helena asked. Julia raised her hand. Grandma, leave it to me. I work in the hospital administration. I know a chaplain who does ceremonies here for patients. And that's how, 2 hours later, room 847 at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center became a wedding chapel. The chaplain arrived, the nurses decorated the room with some flowers they had at the reception desk, and I stayed there, witnessing the most beautiful story I've ever heard in my life. Helena at 75, with a white scarf on her. Miguel at 77, in a dress shirt that Peter brought from home. The two of them holding hands in front of the bed of the daughter they had just met. Helena, Miguel said, 50 years ago, you saved me from a life of crime. Today you saved me again, by giving me the family I always dreamed of having. Miguel, she replied, 50 years ago, you showed me what it was like to be truly respected and loved. Today, you showed me again what forgiveness and unconditional love are. They exchanged the rings they had worn for 52 years. They kissed, and everyone cried, including me. 3 days later, Anna died in her sleep, with her whole family around the bed. But she died in peace, knowing that she had brought together the family she had always dreamed of having. At the funeral, a crowd of people that Anna had helped during her 25 years as a social, entire families she had reunited. Children she had saved from dangerous situations. Parents she had helped find missing children. And do you know what I found out? All these years, without knowing it, Anna was doing the same work she wanted to have done for her, reuniting families. Miguel and Helena now live with Julia and help take care of their great-grandchildren. Peter visits every weekend and calls them Grandpa and Grandma. And they are the most in-love elderly couple you can imagine. And Dr. Carlos? He was reported to the medical board by Anna's children and lost the right to practice medicine. Sometimes justice is slow, but it's not a failure. Man, finishing that ride was the most incredible experience of my life. It made me realize that everyone has a story to tell, that true love overcomes any obstacle, and that it's never too late to form a family. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, share it with someone who needs to believe that true love exists. Share it with someone who is going through a difficult situation and needs to know that everything can work out in the end. And if you have any secrets you're keeping from the one you love, talk about them. Life is too short to live with lies. Helena and Miguel lost 50 years carrying secrets that only hurt them. Don't make the same mistake. Thanks everyone. It was an honor to share this story. And remember, sometimes the simplest rideshare trip can turn into the most incredible story of your lives. Until next time.